Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I know you're really busy, so thank you so much for coming on. Um, as you know, like the podcast is all about inspiring people to do good or talking about the impact you have on our communities and stuff. I know people in the audience may not be familiar with you. Can we maybe start off talking a little bit about yourself and your history? Is there anything in particular you'd like to share with us
Sure.
about?
Yeah. Well, my name's Jordan,
Yeah.
obviously, and I live in BC, Canada, in a very small town, just in the interior of British Columbia. And I live here with my partner, Jeff, and our dog, who's sleeping right here all the time, right beside me. And I live a pretty peaceful, low-key, calm life now. We spend a lot of time now just in the sun. Like, this is the sunniest place that you could live in British Columbia and the warmest. And we spend a lot of time out on the Harley, just on
Hey.
two wheels, adventures on the bike all the time, just on a high level, basic understanding of what my life is like now. And then I'll tell you about where I've been to get here because it didn't always look like this. I have a very loving relationship. It is unconditionally loving. It's one of those ones where we face our shadows together, and it's not always easy, but we know that the other person is never going anywhere, and that's pretty amazing. I've not always had that either. So, um, life for me has been a journey of overcoming my own personal. Are we allowed to use F words on here?
Go ahead.
My own personal fuckery is what I say all the time. It's overcoming the internal fuckery um, because we all have that. We all have an internal battle. And my journey started very long time ago, as all of ours did in childhood. And I didn't know that at the time. But to get really, really where it started to impact me the most was in high school. And in high school, I developed a eating disorder. I was I burned my moral compass. Like, I was a super smart, super dorky kid until high school, and then I just blossomed into a total shithead. Um, and
Wow.
I found my vices in alcohol, boys, and trying to be as pretty and fit and, well, as pretty and tiny, skinny as possible. And so in high school, the eating disorder is really where it all started, and the drinking. And I spent, I don't know, from 16 till 25, kind of in this cycle of starving myself, binge eating, purging, drinking 5, 6 nights a week. I worked in a bar. I worked in a bar 7 days a week. Like, it was the lifestyle was that, and that's how I lived my life for a long time. And I had a lot of really good people in my life, but I also had a lot of a lot of us had a lot of really toxic behaviors, and it led me down a path that eventually caught me in a position where I had found one of my closest friends dead from an overdose in my house after a party that I had. And so that whole process of, like, from the very beginning of being 16 and, you know, wanting so badly to fit in, wanting so badly to be liked, wanting so badly to find, to be liked by boys, especially. That was a big one for me. To be, and then, and I, that formed a lot of my behaviors growing up and growing into early adulthood. And that then shaped out the kind of adult what I was in my 20s, which I'm 34 at the end of this month. So it's not really that far away time-wise, but where I am, where I sit today in my life, in my state of being, who I am, is like worlds apart from where I was even in when Darcy died, it was 2018. So that's only 7 years ago. And that was a very pivotal point for me. Um, and I realized that I couldn't keep doing things the way that I was doing them. And I needed to understand why I did them because I knew who I was when I was a kid, and I knew that I was smart, and I was always smart. I always did really well. I did well at work. I did well in I was coaching nutrition. I was doing all kinds of things up until this point, but I didn't know how to just be. And every time the world got quiet, if I was ever alone by myself, it always led to me drinking, to me finding some sort of like finding a friend or somebody to party with me or to, go and do something with me, or I would end up binge eating. And that it just was a toxic cycle that repeated itself over and over and over again. And I didn't know why. And it was a big fat smack in the face that got me to start to question why instead of just always reaching for the next vice, the next thing I could use to numb out. So um, that led me on a journey of learning about the mind. That was really where I started. It was the most important thing because I needed to know why I was like this. Why am I like this? Like how many times have we all asked that question? Why am I like this? And that I studied for like literally years. I did a ton of journaling. I spent a lot of time learning and applying and trying things and taking courses and reading so many books on the mind, on consciousness, on spirituality, eventually, on all of those things. And so, um, what I do now is I help people to find their inner freedom because that is what I've been able to achieve. Now, my life is completely different. I have zero toxicity in my relationship with food. I am extremely healthy, the healthiest I've ever been, honestly. The happiest I've ever been, the most cared for and cherished in my life that I've ever been because I actually allow it now. And that's what I do. I work with people to help them overcome their internal fuckery and to step into a um, step into the highest possible version of them that they can be. And that changes their life because from in here, when you know who you are in here, that's when you're able to have everything else just as magnetized to you the way it's supposed to.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing, your life story. It was pretty impressive how you're able to turn things around. I was curious because you said like you tried a lot of different things. Like so you were learning things, you were journaling, taking classes. Was there anything in particular that stood out that really made a difference for you in terms of like your personal growth?
Well, I can really sum it up into like three primary steps, um, which is the Limitless Life Code. I know we were talking about that earlier. The Limitless Life Code is what I call the three primary steps to being able to completely become free from the inside out. And so the first one is learning about the mind because you have to know that it's not your fault. You have to know that your programming was inherited. You have to know that the thoughts that occur naturally that you don't have to listen to them, that they aren't you, that you're not producing them, that you're not choosing them. Like you have to really get that in order to become free of your mind and be able to beat it. Because if you can't step outside of the fire, how are you ever going to put it out? Right? So step one is to learn about the mind and to work through the steps of, I call it the inner freedom formula. So you learn about the mind and then you strip away layer by layer the programming that you have accumulated by understanding how you got it and understanding that you have a choice on whether or not you keep it. And so the inner freedom formula is step one, to learn about the mind, to overcome the mind mastery, to get to this position where a thought can come in and you don't have to believe it. You can actually just discern whether or not it is something you want to invest your attention into or not. And then the second step is where I really learned that everything I went through was building out my unique way of creating impact in the world. Everything that I went through is what allows me to get on the phone with somebody and be able to relate and humanize and have compassion for any level of fuckery they have that they carry within them. Because I have looked at all of my demons in the face, and because I have overcome them, and I've helped so many people walk through that so that they can figure out exactly what they're here for. Because I believe that we are here, we are born into the childhood that we had so that we can overcome it, so that we can be in the dark and climb our way out of it. And then from that overcoming, it makes us able to go back into the dark and sit with the people that are there and tell them it's okay, there's a way out. And when you're ready, you can choose it. And I'll be here with you when you do. And it also gives you a unique kind of relatability for the people in the world that need that. So pain into purpose is step two, taking your pain and making it your purpose. And then the third step is that embodiment piece that we were talking about earlier, which is, I call it the light self-activation protocol, which is just a really fancy term for saying living and walking with your highest self as your main focal point, as your main lens that you're looking out from. So we learn about what that means, what it means to be the light self, your highest self. I call it the light self. In my online academy, we call the ego the little self, and we call your highest self your light self, because it's made of light, because you are literally walking, living, breathing light in a human skin sack. So you are when you're living from your light self, you're living from your light from here. And that is where you become a magnet for everything amazing that's meant for you, because you live from the inner standing, not understanding, but inner standing, that your abundance and peace and love, unconditional love, is actually your birthright, and that is what you're made of. And so it is naturally, because you are the source of it, it is naturally what you attract. And then that's what happens. And so those are the three major steps that I have gone through and that I would say are the most important. All the other stuff fits within it, like everything else fits with underneath that umbrella of each one of those steps. But those three steps are what change the game, because when you take your pain and make it your purpose, you're able to put down all the weight you've been carrying with that pain. You're able to put it down and see, okay, this meant something. And because it meant something, I don't have to hate it anymore. Right?
Right. That totally makes a lot of sense. And like, now these days, like the self-help and mental health has become really popular. I think a lot of people are starting to like wake up to these things. But it seems like a lot of people are still confused, or, they don't know what to do. Why do you think that is? Like, what's missing in like the self-help community or the teachings, they think that people are still not understanding, like from
Well,
all their experiences and everything.
I think that the biggest issue in our personal development and self-help and mental health communities is um, that people are still looking for things to change outside of them before they change inside of them. And so one of the biggest things that I teach in the um, academy and with my clients is to really harness the embodiment piece of of what they're learning, because we can read as many books as we want and we can find tips and tricks and tactics and things that help. Like, I have lots of tools in my tool belt, like journaling. I use journaling all the time. When I was first at this, I am a master time blocker because time mastery is very important to my mental health. Like, it's actually incredibly important to my mental health. And then there was all of these things like, meditation and learning how to quiet the mind and learning how to do those things. And those are helpful, but they're only helpful to a certain point because we still somewhere inside believe that we're lacking in here. And so that's why that light self-activation part is so important, because you have to understand that there's nothing out there that's going to fulfill you in here. There's nothing out there that's going to fulfill you in here. And so I do a lot of work with like manifestation communities, because manifestation communities is a really cool way to um, learn about the light self activation without calling it that, right? A lot of people are seeking, wealth and freedom and that special person and all of these things from outside of them. And we think that that's what's going to help us feel better. But the thing is that if you don't work on the embodiment of your worth, like knowing that you're worthy of these things from the beginning, like before you get them or while you get them, whichever way you want to look at it, you're going to always question whether or not you deserve it. And that is why it's so hard. There's so many pieces out there that are just like singular pieces that are being taught by different coaches and teachers and authors, and that's amazing. But for total healing, we need all three. We need all three levels. We need all of the pieces put together to lead us back to wholeness, because all of those things that you're trying to achieve out there are just basically permission slips that you've decided, I need that to feel good here. I need $50,000 in my bank account before I can feel secure. Whereas if you felt secure, the $50,000 would probably just come, right? And so, and it's really just the feeling secure that you're seeking. So I think that there's a big disconnect in what we're actually looking for when we get on this healing journey, right? Because like, even I'm discovering this a lot in marketing of my business, because what I'm offering people is like actual inner freedom. But what people want to buy is more dollars in their bank account, or a way to make more money, or to lose 10 to 15 pounds. That's what people want to buy, right? Because they're still connected to the idea that those things are going to let them feel happy and peaceful. So I think that a major disconnect is that embodiment piece. And in order to cultivate embodiment, it's not tools that are going to get you there. The tools are just helping you get there. They're a bridge, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Thank you really much. I mean, in your experience, because you said you did a lot of journaling, do you find that to be an effective method of like helping people with a self-growth, or not
So
really?
journaling is definitely helpful. It's incredibly helpful, because when you journal, you take everything that's in here that's like swirling You know, I think of it as like being caught in the storm. You're caught in the storm, and it takes all of this and puts it in front of you. And if you are doing it right and you're doing it honestly, you can put all of that clutter, all of that junk onto a piece of paper, into a book, and you can look at it then from a third party perspective, from the outside. And you could say, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I don't believe in that. Do I really believe in that? Is that actually true? Because it can torment you in here. And when you're standing in the middle of a tornado and things are like zooming by you and hitting you in the face as they go by, like it's really hard to find your footing in being able to analyze and decide if these thoughts even serve you. So when you're working through the, you know, like the hardest things, like especially the um in the beginning phases of my healing journey, I was so good at compartmentalizing and burying things that I didn't even know what I actually thought about things. I just knew that they felt bad. And when they felt bad, that led me to want to go drink, or it led me to want to go eat, or it led me to want to go do something that would take my mind off of it. And so journaling, what the biggest thing I can say about journaling is do it as honestly as possible. Like be as honest and blunt and like straight up as possible, because it's just you versus you. And you get to, when you put all of that noise, the ugliest things that you think in front of you and out of your head, you're like putting them down for a minute. And then you can decide which things are and are not valid for you right now and what you need to do to let go and overcome them.
Wow, that's really amazing advice. I'm so glad you're here. This is really awesome. I love talking to people like you because you have so much knowledge to impart. And this is what like this podcast I created is really, for. It's for people like you that you can inspire so many people. Now, I want to touch upon something that you mentioned at the beginning. That you said your relationships are really wonderful, that you found this great partner and you have this unconditional love. But many people that I talk to, they nonstop complain about their own relationships. Either they don't have a relationship, they're single, or their spouse or their boyfriend, girlfriend, it's always a mess. They're always saying, this person, da 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 da, this is wrong, and they wish this, wish that. I mean, so many people don't think that true unconditional love exists. So I have like two questions for you. Does true unconditional love really exist? And then why do so many people have problems with their relationships? Because like divorce rates are so high. You see people's relationships end all the time. Like why is there so people have so many problems with relationships? Why is it they can't find this true unconditional love?
Because they can't find it in themselves first. That's the reason why. Because the thing is with relationships, the biggest issue in relationships is communication. It is straight up communication. But the problem with the communication is two things. On the basic level, the biggest issue I see in relationships, especially long-term relationships, is that at some point, one of the two decides that they take offense to what the other person is saying to them. They decide at some point a switch flips and inside of them, and they start to assume that the other person is attacking them when they say stuff, that the other person doesn't have their best interest at heart. Okay. And I'm talking about like a mutually loving relationship, not like a narcissistic, toxic relationship. I'm talking about like if you have a healthy relationship and it starts to go downhill after a long time, a lot of the time it's because somebody starts taking it personally. Somebody starts taking what the other one says personally. And then what that does is that creates defensiveness, and the defensiveness creates defensiveness. And eventually you're just going like this instead of working together. And that is one of the biggest things I've seen in relationships is that there's a disconnect at some point. And the reason for this comes down to a deeper level of communication, which is hard to do when you don't even know what's happening inside of yourself when it's happening. which is why doing this kind of work is so important when it comes to relationships. Because, I mean, for me, I had significant limiting beliefs about myself, which then, because I had these limiting beliefs about myself, I was wearing that limiting belief lens. And everything that, after a certain period of time of being in a relationship with someone, everything that they did all of a sudden fed into that, literally was filtered through that lens. And mine was that I couldn't have success and love at the same time. So then anytime, one of my ex-boyfriends would say something, um, something that I didn't like, or that I heard maybe the wrong way, the way I heard it was that they had a problem with me working too much, or they had a problem with me doing something without them, or they had a problem with this, because that was my lens, was that I had two different ones, that I was too much, and that I couldn't have success and love at the same time. And so that those limiting beliefs that you're carrying inside are, when your romantic partner, most of the time is your partner and your parents are usually the most triggering for those limiting beliefs, because that's where you're expecting unconditional love to come from. But if you don't have it in here for yourself, if you don't have the compassion and the understanding of what your limiting beliefs are, and that sometimes our mind filters and grabs a hold of things that our loved ones say, trying to pivot it and make it, mold it into something that fits into our evidence box of why we're not good enough, right? That's what's happening in a lot of relationships. And so we walk into relationships and we're expecting this person to be the missing piece. This person is going to love us. Finally, someone's going to love us all the way. And then we feel like that's what's happening in the beginning, the honeymoon stage, right? And then as we go, if we aren't ready to face our shadows, because they will come, because that's what happens with romantic relationships, is your shadows come. They come up because this is your expression, your outward expression of unconditional love that you've been seeking. And so if you aren't aware of what those shadows are, they're going to come up and they're going to twist what's happening in your relationship to fit the narrative that's living inside of your head. And that's why a lot of people who have issues with relationships have the same cycle in relationships. They always date the same guy, supposedly, but are they dating the same guy, or are they actually just filtering what's happening with that guy through that same limiting belief lens, right? It's like a lot of the time, that's exactly what's happening. I would say that's probably the biggest disconnect, is that unconditional love starts inside, always. And that and then the other part is what I mentioned earlier, where we lose the ability to give our partner the benefit of the doubt in their intention. I find so often we stop assuming that they are coming from a loving place, and we start to assume that they're coming from a place of attack. And that is 100% because of what's happening inside of us. And again, I'm talking from a healthy relationship standpoint, not from some toxic, abusive, narcissistic. That's obviously a completely different story. But
Well,
let me,
I notice a lot of people have like trust issues in relationships because they've been hurt in the past by previous relationships that used to like kind of carry over into future relationships. So how do people like trust, your new partner when like you've been hurt or burned or cheated on? And it seems like kind of really prevalent in our society today that, you don't know what people are doing. And because of things like social media, it's just so easy to lie and to cheat. How do you trust like your partner where you can, get to the point of having unconditional love? When we live in a society, it seems like the lack of trust and things like lying, cheating seems so prevalent. Like, who can you trust?
yeah, well, totally. And I would say that the law of unconditional love would mean that, so for me, I would say that my the truest thing about unconditional love is where, like, actual unconditional love is where you unconditionally love yourself so much that you know that you don't need anybody's love to complete you. And so when you come together with somebody, to unconditionally love them is to hope that whatever they do, they will choose to follow their heart in whatever path that takes them. So if, let's say I was in my relationship now, that my partner decided that he wanted to leave and be with someone else. An unconditionally loving state would be like, I'll miss you, but I hope you're happy. That's unconditional love. So to answer your question, how do you trust? You just decide to trust, because the whole time that you're spending not trusting is ruining your life and probably leading you to the end of your relationship anyway. So why not throw your hat in the ring and decide, I'm going to clean slate this, and I'm going to decide to fully be in it and enjoy every moment of it while I have it. And live from that standpoint instead of from the standpoint of needing your partner to prove their love for you. Right? Because when you live in a relationship from this position, you're able to communicate your needs, but also detach from the need for them to provide that to you, right? So honesty is a really important thing to me. And if I would communicate that honesty is a really important thing to me, and I love my partner very much, but if he started lying to me, then he would just have to go. And that is a unconditional loving thing for myself, but also it's allowing him the freedom to lie and just know that this is the natural consequence of if that goes. Like I would not punish him for lying to me. I would just say, clearly this isn't aligned anymore. So think of your relationships as, we're going to come together and we're going to be cohesive for as long as we're cohesive. We're going to be aligned for as long as we are aligned. I'm going to love you with everything that I've got, and you're going to love me with everything that I've got, or that you've got, and we're going to enjoy every moment of this while we have it. And if it happens to fall apart, then we'll deal with that then. But by living in distrust, what you're trying to do is control them. That's what's happening. You're trying to control them because you're trying to control the outcome. If you've been cheated on before and you're living in a state of distrust with your current partner, you're actually trying to have control over whether or not they are going to cheat on you again. That's what that distrust is in your mind. When you're like constantly living in a state of mistrust, you're actually seeking control. But in love, in a relationship where there's two people, freedom is what you should be wanting to give them in relationship. And so by distrusting them and putting controls on the relationship because of this distrust, that's not freedom at all, and that's not unconditional love. And so if you have an issue with trust, not you, but if someone's listening has an issue with trust in their relationship, I would say the best thing that you can do is let go of control and learn to love what you have right now. And if it falls apart, deal with it then, because you made it through the last time and you'll make it through the next time if it does ever happen again. But at least you'll be living in the vibration of love while you're in it. And you'll actually get to experience the light that is being brought to you instead of drowning in turmoil inside of your own head while out there, everything you've been looking for is available to you.
Wow, that's really amazing advice. I mean, you don't stop giving great advice. Wish I could talk to you all day about this. Um, Can you maybe like share like a story of maybe one of your clients that you've helped so people can better understand like how you work with people? Because you kind of mentioned you do like embodiment work, but what does that like look like, in terms of like results or for a particular client? Can you share any stories that you've helped somebody?
Yeah, I have a few that I are my favorite stories to tell. In the last few years, I've worked with a 16-year-old. She's now 18, but when she came to me, or actually her parents came to me because of my history with eating disorders. I had been sharing a lot about eating disorders in my content on LinkedIn, actually. And her dad reached out to me because she was like in the worst possible place. She had just overdosed on pills. She had just run away from home. She had spent 3 months in inpatient eating disorder care earlier that year. And I think I was their Hail Mary, to be honest, before they sent her to a facility. And and she was a mess. Like, and she was a lot like me. She was a incredibly smart, incredibly likable kid who was a little bit on the quieter side. And she in, middle school, earlier than me, but in middle school, she found her way into a crowd. And that crowd was the pot smoking, drinking, suicidal type crowd. And and she also started starving herself, and she learned from TikTok, actually. She learned from the depths of TikTok be how to have an eating disorder and hide it from your parents. Um, and so she built out her entire life was just darkness. And with her, it was so interesting because we went through, we started by talking twice a week for an hour. She clicked with me right away, probably because I'm, not your average therapist. And um the tattoos help, and it works with kids. They like that. Gives that edgier, she gets me kind of vibe. Anyway, I worked with her twice a week, and what I did with her is we worked through all different stages of understanding, well, basically the Limitless Life Code. We went through 3 different steps. The first was getting her body back. I taught her that you are going to lose control over your weight if you keep starving yourself, because I've been there, and a million other women have been there. And so if you want, eventually you're going to start gaining weight no matter how much you starve yourself. So I told her that, and I told her I could teach her how to nourish her body properly, where she could be as fit or small as she wanted, but still by eating food and always having control over her weight. And so that, I think, is what got her in with me. Remember, I was talking about how people want that surface level thing before they actually buy into the rest of it. So that was the first thing for her. And then what I did with her is I taught her about her mind. I taught her about vices, about how the belief in lack, how we are always feeling like we're not good enough, how that's natural. That's a natural human thing. We walked through all of that inner freedom formula, and that took about, because she was 16 and pretty set on not getting better. Uh, that took about 6 months of like really understanding what was happening there. And then we dove right um, into why she'd gone through everything that she'd gone through, why she went through all of these things, and how this could, like me, could allow her to be able to help people around her, which really lit up in her. There's something about that where you realize all of this darkness means something. All of this darkness means something, and I can help somebody with this. And that started to shift for her. And then we went from there into understanding a lot of the spiritual stuff. So really that light self-activation stuff I was telling you about, where you're learning about your light, learning about spirituality, learning about the laws of the universe, learning about how to come from a position and understanding of wholeness and completion. And I'll tell you, from she was 16 when we started, it was November. It is now March, and she is 18 now. Will be 19 in July. We only now speak once a month. And she graduated high school with honors, which she was set to fail before we started. She was going to drop out, actually. She graduated with honors. She's now in university studying automation and engineering. She is in a very healthy relationship. She loves her body. She has no eating disorder. She plays ringette like 3 times a week. She is like, has an incredible relationship with her parents, with her siblings. Like, she is my pride and joy, that kid. And she is probably the clearest testament of this working at least twice. From the depths of the fuckery that I was in, she was in the exact same place that I was in, but worse. And we still got her there. And it only took us 2 years, which is incredible. And so that story I love to tell. The other story would be, I have lots, but I have another story about an anger management client. He came to me, I think, based on something I had posted about your mindset, and I don't even remember how he came to me, but he did, and we got on a call because he had a rage problem, like an extreme rage problem. And that rage problem got him into trouble a lot. And it was the kind of trouble he finished a lot. And so when he came to me, he didn't really understand how he was going to get over that anger. He wanted to, because he knew it was really screwing up his life, but he didn't know how. And what we did is we worked through the understanding that his anger was actually a coping mechanism from his childhood that he had carried with him. And he was so desperate to not be like the people that he grew up with, his family that he had grown up with. They were pill poppers, and he was so desperate not to be like them. And what he did not realize, and what I led him to understand, is that this vice with his rage was equal to doing drugs, because it was a vice. It was a vice that helped him deal with the idea that he might not be good enough. And so we only spoke for 5 months weekly, I would say, 4 or 5 months weekly. And I just got a message from him recently thanking me, because he was able to completely repair his relationship with his parents. He was able to exit a extremely toxic narcissistic relationship where he was about to lose his mind. He has completely overcome his rage issues that he has carried his entire life since he was like 9 years old. And these are the kinds of things that, when you are able, I think the most important thing that needs to be understood when we're doing this kind of work is that all vices are the same. They have different consequences. They have different impact on your health. They have different impact on the people around you. But all vices, whether you're drinking to numb out, whether you are using your rage to numb out, whether you are starving yourself to numb out, whether you're using being a workaholic to numb out, that's something else I did, whether you're using extreme fitness to numb out, seeking all of your enoughness out there and not being able to get it, so then you numb out with something, that's all fed by the exact same belief system. the exact same belief system. And so it all can be completely transcended with the Limitless Life Code, which is why it's called the Limitless Life Code. And it's not about binge eating, and it's not about eating disorders. It's not about anger management. It's about becoming limitless, becoming truly limitless. And there's so many of us, to answer your question earlier about why the mental health space is so confusing, is that there's so many of us that are just treating the symptoms of the problem instead of the problem itself. So we're trying to stop drinking, or we're trying to stop, um, we're trying to lose weight, or we're trying to stop binge eating, or we're trying to stop self-sabotaging. And it's like, okay, those are great things to stop. But if you do that, you just end up playing whack-a-mole with your vices. You know, you hit that one and it goes down, and then another one over here pops up. All of a sudden you're shopping all the time, or you're scrolling, or you're dating, you're serial dating on Tinder, or you're, you know, like there's always something to go to. And so if you don't find the root, which is the same for everyone, it's always down to the belief that I'm not good enough, or that I might not be enough, or that I might not have enough. And it always comes down to that. And if you don't get there and pull that root, the weeds are going to just keep popping up. So, I mean, I've worked with clients who've overcome eating disorders with me. I've had clients with anger management. I've had clients with self-sabotage. I've had clients, all kinds of weight loss and health related clients. I've helped clients with their anxiety, with their ADHD. It all comes back down to that same root cause. And those 3 steps that I explained to you are the umbrellas under which we do the work and we become free.
Wow, it's really amazing. If people have questions about this interview or they're interested in working with you, how can they reach out to you?
Well, they can come and follow the Limitless Life Code podcast for more free information. I have a Facebook group called the Limitless Life Manifestation Facebook group. And I also have a website, which is www.makemoveswithjc.com. And you can book a one-on-one call from that website, or you can just scroll and see what kind of free resources I have, or you can even come and check out the academy.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and knowledge and your stories, your own story and the stories of your clients. It's really inspirational, in my opinion, to listen to all this. So thank you again for coming on the podcast. Is there any last final words you'd like to tell the audience before we go?
I would just say that you are already worthy, and you always have been. And there's nothing you need to do to become worthy except for decide that you're going to let yourself know it. So my invitation to you is to work really hard to just let yourself know it.
Well, Jordyn, it's been a pleasure today.
Absolutely, Daniel. Thank you for having me.